Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it is time for an early video because, well, the CBA has officially been finalized for the 2025 and 2026 UFL seasons. You heard that right. We finally are done dealing with this CBA, UFPA, UFL drama. It's not fully approved yet, but I'll talk about that in a second, just the last stage of it. But we have an actual agreement on this, and this is going to go retroactively to the start of training camp this season, and of course goes to next year. All these CBAs we've seen have been essentially one-year deals. When the USFLPA came around, they made that huge increase from year one to year two in the USL. 1 year CBA, then another 1 year CBA with the UFL, and we have an actual 2 year one being made here. This is one where it pretty much didn't do either thing that the players really wanted fully, but did both of them kinda. So let's get right on into this with the tweet from Kevin Seifert, who ended up coming out saying the UFL and UFPA have finalized the CBA retroactive to the start of the season, extended to 2026. Now, the deal is pending approval from the UFL board, so it just needs that final stamp of approval, and then it's done. So something could happen, could be nixed at the 11th hour, could have something changed about it, but odds are, considering the fact that this was, done through the UFL and UFL, or the UFPA, it shouldn't. So let's get into it, looking at the ESPN article from the thumbnail. Not going to look over everything. I'm just going to go over a couple big points. Here's a decent amount of text, a wall of text. The important thing to note about this is, like I said, it is pending final approval and is retroactive to the start of training camp. So that means anything like Player of the Week awards, players playing, it goes back to the start of training camp and goes till now. Now, it's also important to note that there is going to be one slight increase. At this point of the season, the salary is going from $55,000 essentially to $62,005 if you play all 10 regular season games. Now, next season, it's going to be increased to $64,000 per year. So it's essentially after this year to next year, it's going to be basically a $9,000 increase per year from the 2024 season to the 2026 season. Now, of course, there's a couple quotes in there about the UFL, UFPA, and then there's some more in the article, but this is the main point of the CBA here. The structural changes are an annual raise of $7,005. Now, note, this is not the overall record. The USFLPA, or the USFL from year one to year two, had a slightly higher single year increase, as they went from like $4,500 a game to like $5,350 or something like that. So they had the biggest overall increase. So this one came close to it, but didn't necessarily match that one, which that one was legitimately close to being like a $10K raise, but this is still a close second. Makes all players eligible for year-round healthcare. Now note, there is a caveat which I'll get to later about why this is not technically true and how this isn't, because of course, a big thing with a lot of people who love the UFL is that they were thinking about, well, what is this going to mean in terms of the finance, because healthcare is going to cost a ton of money. We'll get to that in a second. The UFL did a bit of a smart move in their part, and again, the players, they got a raise and some extra healthcare. I'll get to that later. Team roster size increasing to 43 players from 42. This is a solid one. Of course, we've seen sometimes where players get injured and you have a position group where you just have nobody else, and that's because of how small the rosters are. Not against that. And then training camp rosters being increased by 6. Again, some extra players getting paid a bit. Like to see that. Now, the bonuses are kind of things that we've seen in the past, but are going to be fully implemented right now. $500 for Player of the Week awards, $5,000 for Player of the Year awards, $7,500 for MVP, and $5,000 for players that win the championship. So you have that, incentive to win a championship now, as you're going to get a $5K amount, which again is very, very high amount of your salary across the year. Again, that's essentially, an extra full game of pay, basically. So, not fully, but you know what I mean. It's a nice bonus. So in theory, if you win, MVP and a championship, you're legitimately getting paid $12,500 extra to your season. You love that. Process for player grievances, maximum of 2 padded practices per week. Agreement that players can wear preferred cleats, and creation of a labor management committee that will meet 3 times a year. So those are the big changes of the CBA from last year to this year. Of course, this is one of the biggest CBAs we've gotten, mainly because of the fact this is a 2-year CBA. This isn't a 1 year, we're going to come back next year and have the same issues. This is a CBA through 2026, so the next season is going to have the same CBA. Now, the insurance part. Again, I skipped part of this article. Part of this article goes back to about the Quentin Dormany situation. How, he felt like he got cut because he was a labor guy, and it's like, no, bro, you just weren't that good. Now, and a couple other parts, but the UFPA did file an unfair labor practices. Now, when that came out, everybody pretty much agreed the UFPA was going to lose that no matter what. but that's probably going to be obviously withdrawn after them both agreeing with this. Now, this second part of this thing is what's important. The sides remained in contact throughout, and ultimately the league agreed both to a salary hike and healthcare formula that gives players 7 months of insurance, followed by subsidized COBRA for 5 other months. In 2024, players were only insured for the 4-month UFL season. Now, I don't know fully about it. I've talked to a few guys. It looks like COBRA is essentially like the players basically have to pay for it. It's not the greatest insurance thing in the world. So, from the league's perspective, the league is only providing 3 more months of insurance. Now, I say only. That's still 7 months out of a 12-month year. That's over half the year. Again, your season is 4 months if you do the entire broad thing and make it as broad as you can. So, this is how the league kind of managed to do it. So, the players wanted either a huge raise or they wanted insurance all year, right? Those are the 2 big things they wanted. They got one of the biggest raises, but not the biggest raise we've seen in spring football history. That's still the record that's held by the Year 2 USFL. And they also didn't get year-round health insurance, but they did get almost double the insurance coverage they had before. So that's where it kind of is the middle ground for the UFL and their perspective. They're not paying these players 12-month year-round healthcare. They're only doing 7 months, so they're adding 3 months. So they're not necessarily doubling it, but they're getting close to it. And they are giving a massive pay raise, but they also don't have to deal with this next season, as next season's raise is obviously much less than this year, but is still a raise. So there's a bunch of quotes. You can go look at the article. Again, I'll have the link in the description for this article from ESPN. But that's pretty much it when it comes to CBA. So overall, what does this mean? It means that we don't have to deal with this next season. That's what it ultimately means. We don't have to deal with this next season. A lot of people might see this and think it's, full year-round healthcare because that's what it's going to be called, even though technically it's only 7 months, which again is still a nice increase. So it's kind of an agreement that you would hope both sides win at. Pessimistic people are saying, did the league just kind of cave in? We'll have to wait and see about that. Again, some of these things like the Player of the Week bonuses are things that kind of cause contention with players in the USFL or the UFLPA last year and caused them to go to the UFPA. But this whole thing is done, so this whole negative press that we have been getting pretty much the entire way heading into the season, and even partway during the season we've been dealing with it, is over. Again, it's great to see something like this be hammered out and through 2026. Again, nothing's confirmed until it actually happens, but this gives even more hope to a 2026 season. When you add this with a couple of the international showcases that are supposed to be held, for 2026, as well as season ticket stuff, it just gives you some more hope that the league is going to be back next season. Certain quotes coming out about how it's still about the long haul and all that. But again, we'll have to wait and see for that overall. But when it comes to this, thankfully, we're done dealing with the CBA thing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as soon as I upload any videos. Again, whenever breaking news like this comes out, this video has been posted within 3-4 hours of this thing being posted, despite how early it is. So if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe. And if you have been around the channel for a while, think about becoming a community member. You get a bunch of benefits. Again, I will be live streaming tonight's Friday Night Football game, doing a live play-by-play, and tomorrow's Battlehawks Renegades game. So be on the lookout for those. And as always, guys, have a great night.